Robert Cook asked about running in BX or OSE. Now, he talks about running in terms of evasion. BX, and I'm assuming by extension OSE. I don't have OSE printed out, but I do have my binder of BX printed out. And we can see there actually is a section specifically on running. So, first of all, there are no attacks of opportunity. So Robert mentions in his comment that this opens up certain strategies if you want to run backwards and then fire a missile weapon, run backwards, fire a missile weapon, something like that. You can sort of, if the monsters keep playing into it, you could potentially, if the hallways and whatever allow, keep retreating. And I think that this is actually not a bug, if you will. It's a feature because especially at low levels, remember, keep in mind how deadly combat can be. And in this case, the game is really encouraging you to, if you got to run to get away, run to get away. So the first thing is speed in the game is listed sort of in your turns. Remember, we talked about dungeon turns in that kind of turn. To get your speed during combat, you divide that by 3. There is actually a little section. I'm looking at B24 if you've got the basic book, which before we get to evasion has a little section on running that basically says take your combat speed and multiply it by 3 to get how fast you can run per combat round. So if your encounter speed, your sort of regular combat speed is your encounter speed divided by 3, you just multiply it. So basically whatever, if you're a person, your character can run or can move rather 60 feet. Normally, that's their movement rate. 60 feet is your running rate. I think the book does mention that you can't just run forever. I think it says, was it 60 turns? No, 30 turns I think you can run. Yeah, 30 turns you can run, so half of a turn. They're trying to do this sort of math, right? So if 10 minutes are a turn, you cannot run for 10 minutes. You can run for 5 minutes before you will potentially exhaust yourself. And we do have the sections on evasion and pursuit. I think the thing to keep in mind, if you're into running away, if they're going to take that strategy, it will work. I think by the book, you can run. If we look at the combat sequence, it goes morale, movement, then missile. So presumably, if you allow them to run, and the book doesn't say you can't, it just doesn't really mention running separately, then yeah, they can run, turn, fire weapon. You do need to keep in mind, a lot of the monsters are going to be faster than people. There was some that maybe more slow, but a lot of them are going to be at least as fast as you are, if not faster. So if you are running, the potential is that they can run as well. So if that's your whole strategy, you might run into some problems with something that could really hit that same running speed as you can. Because if you're running away from them, you can't hit them. You don't get any penalties, or you don't get any bonuses to strike. And if they can run and get it back up on you in before, because remember, movement comes before missile. We're doing everything in this kind of turn order, right? So it's everybody's movement, then everybody's missile fire. If they're back up to you in melee, you don't have a chance to fire. So that is something that needs to be kept in mind. I would say that if the party is going to run and the monster is keen to pursue, they're going to also run. So whatever that movement rate is, the monsters are going to be able to match it. So if you start at missile distance, maybe that can work. But if you're starting at melee and you think, oh, I'm going to just keep running backwards and backwards, it might not be as successful as you want. The other thing to keep in mind is dungeons have lots of corners, lots of turns. You're not getting really long straightaways, and monsters might just stop pursuing you if you go around corners. In fact, that's talked about in evasion. I'll just quote, monsters will chase evading characters only as long as the characters are in sight. Evading characters may be able to slow this pursuit by dropping things. So that's another part of it. But the key point there is at sight. So if the party is running backwards and they're running around corners or into other rooms, then there's a good chance that an unintelligent monster is just not going to chase them. And of course, if it's an intelligent monster, there's a really good chance they're not going to fall for that bait. Or maybe they do it once. You could roll a reaction, you could roll from around. Maybe they will come charging around the corner. They get some arrows and slingshots and whatever, bolts thrown at them, knives. And then the next time the party decides to do that same maneuver, the monsters are under no compulsion to just chase them just because. So I think ultimately, no, there are no specific rules about running in combat. Yes, there are specific rules about running speeds that are in combat rounds. I don't really see a problem with parties using them. Keep in mind, monsters can use them too, and the same monsters that you've been trying to kite and have chase you so you can shoot them might also run backwards, try to get the characters to chase them. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And because things are so deadly and so fraught in combat, especially at low levels, I think allowing characters the freedom and the ability to really try to disengage and get away if that's their want, I think is a good thing rather than a bad thing. So I really wouldn't mess with it. I didn't look at OSC to see if OSC kind of muddies the waters, like I feel like they do sometimes with how they condense and try to reorganize the rules. But just take each of those pieces as its own thing. Running is one thing, evasion is another thing, so on and so forth. The other thing to keep in mind is that they are in melee and they turn and run. They're in that retreat mode, which means that monsters will get a bonus to hit them. And then if the character is using a shield, the shield is not available because they're basically being hit from behind. So there's that cost as well. So keeping all that in mind, if they want to run, let them run. Game on. Talk to you later.